I never thought a routine checkup at South Coast Medical would end with a warning so stark it made my knees buckle. I was still buttoning my coat when I reached into my bag for my wallet and felt it crumpled, wedged between my pill organizer and a tube of hand cream. A piece of paper. Handwritten. I unfolded it slowly, expecting some misplaced receipt, but the words knocked the breath from my chest. Get away from your family immediately. Dr. R. At first I thought it was a joke. Then I remembered how oddly Dr. Rochelle had acted at the end of my appointment, how she lingered near the door, her eyes flitting toward the hallway, her voice trembling just slightly when she said, "Take care, Ruth." Seriously. Now, inside the safety of my bedroom in Southside Savannah, the light dimming behind the heavy floral curtains, I clutched the note and looked toward the door. Locked, thank God. Tyler's voice slammed through the wood like a hammer. "Mom, open this damn door. We need to go over your meds and finances for tomorrow. We've got things to get in order." His tone had that forced calm he used when pretending to care, sharp beneath the syrup. I backed away. Dread crawled up my spine like ice water. My hands were shaking, but I managed to cross to the dresser. I opened the top drawer where I kept my essentials. Checkbook, will, passwords notebook. Empty. Just a neat, clean drawer where my life had once been organized. I checked again, frantic. My checkbook was gone. My handwritten will, last updated in 2023, after Curtis died, gone. Even the small folder labeled Regions Bank, online login info, had vanished. I sank onto the bed, breath coming fast, skin cold. "Mom, don't make this harder than it needs to be," Tyler shouted. "We're trying to help you." I gripped the note tighter, my heartbeat pounding like a war drum. Dr. R. meant Dr. Rochelle. She'd been my primary for almost 12 years, through 2 surgeries and Curtis's hospice care. She wasn't one for melodrama, which meant this was real. I stared at the doorknob, already imagining it turning. I knew that sound, the threat wrapped in concern. Something was happening, something dangerous, and the people I thought were helping me were the ones I needed to escape from. I turned on my lamp and whispered to the room, "You picked the wrong woman," and I started making a plan. After finding the note and realizing my checkbook and will had vanished, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed beneath the old quilt my sister Clarice stitched the year Curtis passed, thinking back through every interaction with Tyler and Mel over the past few months. The kindness had come too quickly, the errands too well timed, and now, with Dr. Rochelle's warning burning a hole in my chest, I saw it all differently. By morning, I was dressed before the sun even rose. I moved slowly through the house, trying not to wake anyone, but the wooden floors creaked beneath my feet like they remembered who paid for them. I made it to the kitchen, sat down at the butcher block island I'd refinished myself 15 years ago, and tried to steady my hands with a warm mug of chicory coffee. The air was thick with early October dampness, still summer in Savannah's bones, though fall teased the edges. The birthday card caught my eye first. It was still taped to the refrigerator door. "Happy 65th, Mom. We love you." The marker ink had bled slightly in the humidity, but the falseness of the sentiment hadn't faded a bit. Under the words was a cartoon peach with a smile. I remembered how Mel had giggled as she handed it to me 2 weeks ago, insisting Tyler had picked it out himself. Now the whole gesture felt rehearsed, like a set piece in a play where I was meant to be the grateful, doddering matriarch. I tried to log into my bank account, Regions, website, the usual login, but the system didn't recognize my credentials. I reset the password, only to be told the phone number linked to the account was no longer valid. That number had been mine since 2008. I checked my desk drawer in the den for backup files, tax returns, digital passwords, account summaries, but the folders had been rearranged, too neatly, stripped of their actual contents, just shells of order left behind. When Tyler walked in with exaggerated cheer, "Morning, Mom. Need help with your vitamins?" I smiled politely, noting how he kept his body between me and my phone on the counter. Mel followed, carrying a tray with toast and yogurt like she was auditioning for a home health aide role. They watched me too closely. They offered help too often. Because now I understood. Every kindness had a ledger, and I was already paying for things I hadn't agreed. 3 months earlier, life still felt like mine. Every morning, before the sun got too hot, I'd sit out on my front porch with the crossword folded just right and a cup of coffee sweating in my hand. WJZA played soft jazz through the screen door while cicadas buzzed in the oaks overhead. The porch railings, once white, had started peeling in places, something I kept telling myself I'd fix next week. But I liked the way they wore time. I wore it too. Victory Drive still carried the hum of the city past my little bungalow, but inside my fence, things moved slow. I had my rhythm. Tuesdays were for the farmer's market off Waters. Fridays for a slice of coconut cake at Miss Pauline's Cafe. My knees weren't what they used to be since the meniscus surgery in May, but I got around fine, with my cane when I needed it, which I usually didn't. Independent. That's the word I used. That's the word I lived by. Then Tyler and Mel moved in. It was framed as temporary. Just a few weeks, they said, to help me recover. I'd come home from surgery with Nurse Kendra's careful instructions, physical therapy appointments penciled in, and a little stack of brochures about aging in place. Tyler had shown up with a trunk full of luggage and groceries I hadn't asked for. "We'll just be in the guest room," he'd said. "Take care of everything while you rest." At first, it felt like a blessing. Meals were made. The laundry folded itself. I didn't have to bend, or lift, or worry. But soon, little things began to shift. My grocery list started disappearing from the fridge, replaced with items I didn't recognize. The jazz station gave way to Mel's productivity playlists, tight, chirpy sounds that grated by noon. They reorganized the pantry without asking, boxed up old photo albums and labeled them extra. I caught Mel once holding up my wedding china, turning it over in her hand like she was pricing it. Still, I told myself they meant well, that I was being touchy. Recovery took patience. Let them help. Then the bills started arriving. My HSA card, which I'd used judiciously, $14,800 remaining before the surgery, was now drained. Nurse Kendra called to confirm final payment. I hadn't even seen the invoices. Tyler handled all that now, he said. I smiled, nodded, thanked them both. But sitting on the porch one morning in July, with sweat sliding down my back and no crossword in hand, I realized the house was full, but I felt like a guest. The first time I signed something I didn't fully understand, I did it out of trust. It was August 12th, the air thick as grits and heavy with that late summer hush that settles over Savannah like a wool coat. Tyler had been hovering around me all morning, casually dropping hints about how behind I was on utility bills, how it might be easier if someone could just manage the clutter for me. I'd just finished my physical therapy appointment, my knee sore, my energy thin. He brought me a glass of sweet tea, set up the laptop, and said it was just a form to make paying bills easier. Nothing permanent. "It's just to help you out, Mom," he said with that earnest face I used to trust without question. "Limited power of attorney. Doesn't give me control, just access. You'll still do everything. This just makes emergencies easier. Like if you're at an appointment or something." I hesitated, asked questions. He kept reassuring me. "Temporary," he repeated, more than once. Then Mel popped her head in from the hallway. "Sheila's waiting," she said, gesturing to the Zoom call on screen. A mobile notary, Sheila Green, sat in a tiny video box, eyes scanning her paperwork. She looked professional, bored even, businesslike. I clicked the digital signature box. My mouse trembled slightly as I moved it across the screen. Afterward, Tyler clapped his hands and smiled like he'd won something. "This is going to make your life so much easier," he said. But what I remember most is the silence that followed. A stillness in the house that didn't feel like peace, but the kind of quiet that comes before a door slams shut. 2 days later, I received an automated email from Regions Bank confirming changes to my account. The sender address was real. The document attached, a PDF titled Limited POA, Tyler R. Morgan, was the same file I remembered signing. It had the notary stamp. Everything looked legal, and it was. That was the worst part. No alarms had gone off, no red flags waved, just one signature, one Zoom call, one slightly off smile. That's all it took to turn my finances into community property, and me into an administrative footnote in my own life. I printed the email and slid it into a folder marked Important. I didn't yet know how important that file would become, but something told me I'd need it soon. By the 5th of October, I had stopped pretending. After breakfast, while Tyler and Mel were out running errands, which lately seemed to mean long disappearances and short tempers, I sat at the dining table with my spiral-bound ledger and a cup of strong black tea. The table was cluttered with receipts, bank printouts, and my phone open to the Venmo app. I needed to see it all laid out. I needed the numbers to speak plainly. Page by page, line by line, I added it up. Groceries, a steady drain, $120 here, $85 there, mostly Whole Foods, not places I ever shopped at myself. I found 3 separate charges for a boutique pet store, though I hadn't had a dog since Curtis passed. Mel had a Pomeranian. Then the Zelle transfers, $400 on February 17th, labeled Emergency Dental, $650 on June 1st. Car broke down, $275, graduation gift for Mel's niece, though I was never invited to the party. And always followed by a thank you text that read like an invoice. "You're the best, Ruth. We'll pay you back soon, promise." Venmo logs were worse. They didn't even try to hide the labels. Nail day woman in steamy room. Wedding planner deposit. U-Haul for storage. I hadn't moved in years. I turned to my region's bank statements, lining them up by month, highlighter in hand. Between 2020 and now, I had transferred $42,610 to Tyler and Mel. Tracked, labeled, itemized. Not including cash withdrawals or those moments where I just picked up the check, signed the form, sent the groceries, paid the copay. I paused, pressing the heel of my hand into my chest. It wasn't the money. Not exactly. I would have given that and more if love had been the currency exchanged. Mel breezed in from the back door, carrying a white box of croissants she didn't offer me. "Oh, hey," she said, glancing at the table. "Need help with taxes or something?" "No," I replied without looking up, voice low but steady. "Just adding." "Adding what?" "What I've paid to keep peace in this house?" I said, meeting her eyes. She blinked, then smiled as if she hadn't heard me. "Hey, can I Venmo you later for my student loan check? It's due today, and I'm a little short." I wrote the figure down, $600, even as I nodded. But I didn't send it. 2 weeks before I found the note, a seemingly minor inconvenience shook something loose in me. I had just finished planning my weekly grocery order: grits, collards, smoked turkey legs, a jar of that fig jam from Miss Langston's roadside stand. I sat at the kitchen island, glasses perched low on my nose, working the Publix curbside app like I always did, meticulously, habitually. I'd selected everything, checked the coupon codes, and hit checkout. The screen blinked, then froze. Transaction failed. I refreshed, tried again. Same result. It wasn't the internet. My radio stream was playing fine, and the porch camera was uploading like always. I stared at the error message, that smug little red triangle. "Card declined. Please use another payment method." A cold ripple moved through my chest. I reached for my purse and pulled out my wallet, extracting my region's debit card. The familiar digits were still there, but it felt suddenly foreign in my hand. I opened my laptop and logged into the bank portal. Or tried to. My password, the one I had used for years, no longer worked. I attempted to reset it, but the system told me again that my phone number didn't match. Frustration prickled beneath my skin. I called the customer service number printed on the back of my card and waded through 3 layers of automated menus before speaking to a young woman named Kelsey. She was polite, professional, and then suddenly hesitant. "Ma'am," she said gently, "I'm seeing that the checking account ending in 7,212 has a current balance of 0. "Zero?" I said. "That can't be right. There should be at least 500 in there. I just deposited a refund last week." "I understand. But yes, I see it here. The last withdrawal was for $400 via Zelle to a verified contact, Tyler Morgan." I didn't say anything for a moment. My throat tightened, but I kept my voice level. "Thank you," I told her. That's all I needed to know. After hanging up, I sat very still. The light in the room had shifted. Bright morning had turned to dull gray without me noticing. Outside, the magnolia branches barely stirred. I picked up the card and stared at it. Not with anger, not yet. More like recognition. The kind you feel when you finally spot the crack in something you'd assumed was whole. That afternoon, I didn't reorder the groceries. Instead, I printed the failed transaction email and filed it behind the tab labeled Proof. By the time October 6th rolled around, I stopped giving them the benefit of the doubt. It started with something small, misplaced paperwork. I had gone to retrieve my Medicare card from the locked file cabinet in the den, tucked behind the old blue photo albums and my last 3 years of tax returns. But the drawer, always stiff with age, slid open too easily. The folders inside were rearranged, not messily. No, this was careful, precise, too precise. My Medicare folder wasn't where I kept it. When I found it in a lower drawer, its edges bent and label peeled halfway off. I flipped it open and found a sheet I'd never seen before. A fax cover letter from our home printer with Mel's name scrawled at the bottom in her looping script. I walked into the kitchen with the folder in my hands. "Mel?" I asked, voice steady. "Have you been in my files?" She looked up from her phone, blinking, like I'd interrupted something sacred. "Huh? My Medicare card. Did you take it out? This says it was faxed to someone." "Oh, that," she said, brushing hair from her face with a too casual wave. "Yeah, I needed it for the referral to Dr. Saunders. You've been saying your knees still hurt, right?" She poured herself a glass of lemon water like we were chatting about weather. "You didn't ask. It was just for a specialist. Just trying to help, Ruth. Don't overthink it." But I was already past thinking. I was remembering how Tyler had snapped at me last week for missing a virtual appointment I never knew existed. How my insurance summary had listed a new provider under a name I didn't recognize. And how, in that moment, Mel hadn't even flinched. Later that afternoon, I called the Medicare hotline. After waiting on hold for nearly 40 minutes, a representative confirmed that new provider records had been added to my account in late September. Internal medicine, cognitive evaluation, billing to a clinic I'd never stepped foot in. I thanked her, hung up, and stared out the den window at the camellia bush, just beginning to bloom. Pale pink blossoms opened like quiet alarms. That evening, I pulled the scratch drawer fully from the cabinet and placed it on the floor. I began photographing every document, every irregularity. I labeled each one. Dated them? If they were going to act like they were in charge, then I needed to start building my own case. Quietly. Completely. That same evening, the air in the house turned electric, like a storm was circling, just out of view. After dinner, one of those silent, overcooked affairs where no one made eye contact, I stepped into the hallway on my way to the laundry room. I wasn't looking to snoop. I was looking for quiet, but voices carried from the den. Mel's voice. Low, clipped, urgent. "No, I told you, the deed still lists her," she hissed. "But Darren said the draft is ready. We just need her signature to file. I don't care how we get it." I froze. Deed. Signature. Draft. The words fell into place like puzzle pieces that had been hovering just out of reach. I stayed still, barely breathing. She must have been pacing because her footsteps shifted direction. A pause. Then, hurried. "She's too distracted. I can handle it. I've got the POA stuff already softening her up." When I stepped into the doorway, she jumped. The phone, her phone, was still in her hand, screen aglow. Her eyes darted from it to me, then back again. She fumbled, locked the screen, and tried to smile. "Hey, I didn't hear you." "No," I said, walking further into the room. "I don't suppose you did." She placed the phone face down on the side table like it was nothing. "Just checking in with a friend. Wedding planning stuff." Wedding planning. We hadn't had a family event in months, and Mel didn't have close friends in Savannah. She made a point of saying so. I moved closer to the table, pulled out a tissue to lift her phone. Still unlocked. The message thread was open. Darren. Escrow. The last message. "Let me know once it's signed. We'll file the title transfer immediately." I took a screenshot. The sound of the shutter was impossibly loud in the quiet room. Mel stood frozen. Her lips parted, but no words came. I waited. Nothing. So I placed her phone gently back on the table, nodded once, and turned toward the hallway. My legs were steady. My breath was not. In my room, I opened the shoebox beneath my bed, where I'd begun hiding anything that didn't feel safe in plain sight. I added the screenshot to the folder, labeled Deed. They weren't just helping themselves to my money. They were circling my house like vultures. And now they were planning the paperwork to carry it off. By the next morning, I decided to confront him. Tyler was in the kitchen, stirring oatmeal with too much intensity, the kind that tried to pass for calm. I waited until Mel had gone upstairs, then stepped into the room with the screenshot folded neatly in my hand. "I heard Mel last night," I said, my voice even, not rising. "And I saw the text." He didn't look up. "What text?" "From Darren. About the deed transfer." That got his attention. His spoon clattered into the pot, and he turned, leaning against the counter, with arms crossed, like he had rehearsed this pose. "Mom," he said with exaggerated patience, "you've been acting really paranoid lately. I think you're confusing things." "I'm not confused," he sighed, the kind of theatrical exhale people do when they want to seem concerned. "You've been forgetting stuff. Important stuff. You've been locking yourself in your room, misplacing documents, accusing Mel of all sorts of things. It's not like you." "You mean it's not convenient?" I replied. "Because I've stopped being passive." He stepped forward, lowering his voice. "Look, we've talked to someone, a professional, just to get some guidance. A guardianship might actually help. For both of us." I stared at him. "You filed something?" He didn't answer right away, but his eyes said enough. Eventually, he pulled out his phone and showed me an email. The header read, "Probate application. Initial request filed. A date, October 5th. Yesterday." "You think I'm incompetent?" I asked. He didn't deny it. Just gave me that same condescending tilt of the head I'd seen on him since he was 10 and got caught lying about who broke the front window. "You're just overwhelmed. You've been forgetting to pay bills. You didn't even remember your doctor's name last week." "I never forgot," I said. "I was watching." He blinked, thrown. I could see the flicker of fear behind his eyes. "I've been watching both of you." He moved toward me again, hands out like he wanted to reach me. "You need rest, Mom. You're not seeing things clearly." I stepped back, the folded paper still in my hand. "I'm seeing it all too clearly now." He tried one last tactic. "We just want what's best for you." I unfolded the printout and placed it on the counter between us. "Then leave my name off your plans." And I walked away. On the morning of October 8th, I left the house without telling them. The Wi-Fi had gone out again. Mel claimed she tripped a circuit while blow-drying her hair, but I saw the router unplugged, the cord neatly coiled. Their pattern was clear now. Isolate, confuse, corner. I wasn't playing that part anymore. I took the bus into downtown Savannah, slow and scenic, past moss-covered oaks and wrought iron fences that had seen more history than Tyler or Mel could begin to grasp. I got off near the Grits and Greens Cafe, a place I hadn't visited in months, but where the waitress still called me Ms. Ruth and brought lemon with my sweet tea without asking. I slid into the corner booth farthest from the window. Dr. Rochelle arrived 10 minutes later, hair pulled into a bun, no white coat, just a navy sweater and anxious eyes. She sat down without small talk and reached into her purse. "I shouldn't be showing you this," she said, laying 2 folded printouts on the table. But I couldn't sleep knowing. The first was an email, Mel's name in the from field. Subject, memory evaluation request, Ruth Morgan. She'd used my full name, my date of birth, and written, "We've noticed increasing forgetfulness and disorientation. We're concerned about early dementia. Please advise on screening protocol." It was dated September 22nd. The second document was worse. A forged note, allegedly from Dr. Y, Rochelle herself, recommending cognitive testing ASAP. It had been used illegally to schedule an appointment under my name, billed to my Medicare without my consent. "She emailed this to the clinic staff, pretending it came from me," Rochelle said quietly. "I caught it when they looped me on the billing. She was hoping no one would check." My hands tightened around the edges of the printouts. The fabric of the booth pressed into my spine like a spine itself, supporting, bracing. "Why?" I asked, though I already knew. "She said they needed documentation for guardianship," Rochelle replied. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to be part of that. I looked at her. Really looked. "You slipped me the note," she nodded. "I knew they'd go through your call logs, emails." Paper felt safer. Outside, the sun was setting gold on the sidewalks. Inside, something had clicked into place so firmly, so sharply it felt like steel locking into steel. I wasn't alone, and now I wasn't afraid. On October 9th, at exactly 10:50 a.m., I walked through the glass doors of Regions Bank on Abercorn Street. The chill of the air conditioning hit my skin like a shock, but I kept walking, every step heavier than the last. My documents were in order. My mind, clearer than it had been in weeks. I had dressed for the occasion, navy slacks, cream blouse, and the locket Curtis gave me on our 20th anniversary. A reminder of who I was before the lies. At the reception desk, I asked for Trina Woods, the senior banker who'd helped me open my first savings account in Savannah after we moved from Macon. She still wore the same coral lipstick and still greeted me like an old friend, even though we hadn't spoken in nearly a year. "Miss Ruth," she said, brows lifting. "What can I do for you today?" I lowered my voice. "I need to revoke all shared access. Power of attorney, joint accounts, everything. Today." She didn't blink, just nodded once. "Come with me?" Inside her office, the blinds were drawn, and the hum of fluorescent lights overhead sounded like a countdown. I handed her the manila folder I'd prepared. Limited POA documents, bank statements, a notarized letter from Attorney Page confirming my intent to rescind all prior authorizations. "Is someone trying to control your finances?" she asked gently. I hesitated, then said, "They already are. I'm here to take them back." She got to work. One by one, we logged into my accounts. She reset the passwords, removed Tyler's access, revoked auto transfers, and issued a new debit card. She placed a fraud alert on my profile, noting suspicious behavior under my previous login credentials. Then came the PINs, new ones for both accounts, and safe deposit access. As she printed the final authorization revocation form, the door burst open. Tyler. Out of breath, jaw clenched, hair still damp like he'd raced from the shower. "Mom, what the hell are you doing?" Ms. Woods rose instantly. "Sir, this is a private client meeting. She's not well," he said to her, then turned to me. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming here?" I stood, squared my shoulders. "Because I don't owe you updates on my life." He stepped closer, voice low. "We're family." "Yes," I replied. "Which means you should have protected me, not stolen from me." Ms. Woods handed me a folder with every changed account detail. "Everything's secure now," she said softly. I nodded, turned, and left without looking back. That night, I didn't go home. I walked straight from the bank to the FedEx Print and Ship Center on Montgomery Street, the folder still in my purse like a live wire. The clerk behind the counter, Jaleel, according to his name tag, greeted me with a yawn and a nod, but perked up when I placed my binder on the counter and asked to use the copier for a lot of pages. "How many is a lot?" he asked, half joking. I unzipped the binder and showed him the first divider. Region statements, last 24 months. Behind it, Zelle logs, Venmo screenshots, printed emails, notarized letters, the revoked POA, the fax Mel sent using my Medicare card. Every piece of it labeled, dated, and sorted. He raised both eyebrows. "Ah. That kind of. A lot. Got it." I spent over 3 hours at the copier, scanning, printing, collating. Each page added weight, not just to the binder, but to what I now carried inside me. Method replaced emotion. Precision replaced fear. I moved page by page, like I was building a case in court. Because I was. They texted 12 times between 5 o'clock and 8:15. The first few were wrapped in false concern. "Mel, we're worried about you, Ruth. Please just come home." "Tyler, this is getting out of hand. Let's talk." When I didn't respond, the tone shifted. "Tyler, you're making a mistake. We were only ever trying to help." "Mel, you need to think very carefully about what you're doing." By the 6th message, the masks were off. It was all panic and pressure. "Tyler, don't do anything stupid. You'll ruin us." I took screenshots of every one. At 9:03 p.m., Jaleel walked over and pointed to the notary window. "She's still here for another 15 if you need anything certified." I didn't hesitate. I brought over the stack and watched the notary stamp the last sheet. My summary statement titled, "Unconsented Financial Control by Tyler and Mel Morgan." The seal hit the page with a crisp thump. Official now, unshakable. By the time I zipped the binder closed, my hands no longer trembled. "Want a bag for all this?" Jaleel asked. "No," I said, sliding the heavy binder under my arm. "I need to feel it." When I stepped back out into the night, the air had turned cold, but I had never felt steadier. By the next morning, October 10th, I knew it was time to stop being quiet. I called Pastor Jordan just after sunrise. He picked up on the second ring, voice warm and groggy. "Ruth Morgan," he said, like my name carried history. "What can I do for you? I need a place to meet. Quiet, private." His pause was short. "Come by St. Calvary, around 2. I'll reserve the community hall." That afternoon, the building was near empty. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, catching dust motes in gold. I sat at one of the long, folding tables beneath a faded mural of the Last Supper, binder in front of me like scripture. Pastor Jordan arrived wearing his usual beige slacks and that green corduroy blazer his wife once told me she hated. He didn't ask many questions. He just pulled out a chair and waited. I opened the binder and began. I showed him the notarized letters, the revoked POA, the forged Medicare fax. I read aloud from Mel's message thread with the escrow agent, then flipped to the printed screenshot of the deed draft listing her name. He didn't interrupt, not even once, only nodded now and then, slow and grave. When I reached the final divider labeled Pattern of Coercion, I looked up and said, "They've been planning this since July, maybe longer, and now they're saying I'm confused, trying to take everything I built." He placed his hand gently on the binder. "You're not confused, Sister Ruth. You're awake. And you're not alone." A silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable, just final. Then he reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a church stationery envelope. Slipped it to me like it was communion. "Put your key inside," he said. "We'll keep it in the church office vault for now, just in case." I slid my old house key inside without hesitation. On my way out, I paused in the hallway reading the flyers on the bulletin board. Youth choir sign-ups, potluck announcements, a call for coat donations. Then I saw it. A new flyer, Family Appreciation Night, October 13th, 6 p.m., all welcome. I didn't remember approving that, but Pastor Jordan stood beside me, smiling gently. "I figured you might want a room full of witnesses," he said. The next morning, I walked into the USPS branch on Waters Avenue with 2 documents in hand, a certified eviction notice and a signed rescission of the gift of residence form Mel had once convinced me to file. The woman at the counter, sharp glasses, maroon nails, barely glanced at the envelope before weighing it. "Priority or certified?" "Certified," I said. "And I want the delivery confirmation." She slid the slip toward me, and I signed without hesitation. The envelope was addressed to my own house. A strange feeling that. But I wasn't sending this to strangers. I was delivering consequence. By then, Attorney Melinda Page had finalized the rescission papers. She'd walked me through the legalities in her calm, measured tone, tapping each paragraph with a pen as she explained. "They never completed a transfer. You retain full ownership. This makes it irrevocably clear." "They'll be furious," I'd said. "That's not your burden," she replied. "This is your boundary, signed and sealed." The eviction letter was brief, just 12 lines, to Tyler and Melissa Morgan. "This letter serves as formal notice that you are to vacate the premises at 4112 Victory Drive within 72 hours of receipt. Failure to do so will result in legal removal. This house is not a gift. It is not a legacy. It is mine, Ruth Morgan." By the time I left the post office, the Savannah air had grown heavy with late morning heat. I stood on the sidewalk, watching traffic drift past, envelope officially sent, and felt the strangest sensation rise in my chest. Not victory, not relief, clarity. That afternoon, Tyler's email came through at 3:17 p.m. Subject, "Let's not escalate this body. Mom, this is unnecessary. Can we just sit down like adults and talk through what's happening? You're making things harder than they have to be." I didn't reply. Instead, I printed the email and added it to the deflection and pressure tab in my binder. By sundown, Mel had posted a vague quote to her Facebook page. "Some people forget who fed them when they were starving." Pastor Jordan texted me just before 8 o'clock. "The church hall's ready. Projector works fine. I'll be there early to help set up." I responded with one word: confirmed. By the evening of October 12th, the house was too quiet. Tyler and Mel hadn't spoken to me directly since the eviction letter arrived, but the tension settled into the walls like humidity. Doors closed harder. Cabinet drawers clattered louder. Their silence had turned weaponized. At 6:42 p.m., I took my usual seat on the porch swing, mug of chamomile in hand, and watched the neighborhood shift into dusk. Kids rode scooters down the sidewalk. Mr. Lionel, across the street, wrestled with his trash bin. The camellias were beginning to close for the night. Then the sirens came. Not loud, just one cruiser, then an ambulance. No lights flashing. They pulled up to my house slow and deliberate. The neighbors peered from behind curtains. I stayed seated. A young EMT stepped out first. Behind him, a uniformed officer approached the walkway. "Ms. Ruth Morgan?" the officer asked. "Yes," I said, lifting my mug. "We received a call from inside the residence reporting concerns about your mental state. Possible confusion, suicidal ideation." I blinked once. "You mean my daughter-in-law called?" He didn't answer that, just glanced at the EMT, who stepped closer, gentle. "Mind if we check you out? Just routine. You seem calm, but protocol's protocol." "I understand," I said, standing slowly. "You're doing your job. Leon James," his name was printed in faded ink on his paramedic badge, asked me a series of questions. My name, my birth date, the president, today's date. I answered each one slowly and clearly. Then I opened the binder on the swing next to me and handed him a single page. It was the notarized letter from Dr. Rochelle confirming no evidence of cognitive decline. Leon read it, looked me in the eye, and nodded. "You seem perfectly lucid to me." He turned to the officer. "No transport needed." The officer asked if I felt safe. I pointed toward the front door. "Not particularly, but only for another 24 hours. They left quietly. I watched from the swing as Tyler stepped onto the porch just as the cruiser backed out. "What did you tell them?" I asked. He didn't answer. Mel stood just behind him in the foyer, arms crossed, face unreadable. "They believed me," I said, "because I came prepared." The screen door slammed as I went back inside. That night, I slept with the binder at my bedside. It was almost time. October 13th arrived, like Savannah's air had been scrubbed clean. No fog, no heat haze, just clarity and quiet anticipation. By 4:30, I was at St. Calvary Baptist, sleeves rolled, sweat dotting my brow as I helped Pastor Jordan arrange chairs in neat arcs around the fellowship hall's wooden floor. The old church bell clanged faintly in the distance, muffled behind stained glass. Folding tables lined the front of the room, one holding a borrowed projector, the other stacked with manila folders, each stamped in red ink with a single word: evidence. At 6 o'clock sharp, people began to arrive. Neighbors, Deacon Fields, Nurse Kendra from physical therapy. Pastor's wife brought in trays of deviled eggs and sweet tea as if it were just another community potluck. That was the idea. Casual, familiar, disarming. I wore a dark maroon dress and flat shoes. No jewelry but Curtis's wedding band, which I hadn't worn in years. Tonight, it felt like armor. At 6:18 p.m., Tyler and Mel entered. Late, as I expected, dressed like royalty. Tyler in a charcoal jacket that didn't quite fit. Mel in cream slacks and pearl earrings that once belonged to my sister. They smiled wide, like this was their party. Pastor Jordan welcomed everyone, thanked them for attending, quote, our annual appreciation night, and motioned toward me. I stepped forward. No podium, just a handheld mic and the echo of my own voice bouncing softly off the rafters. "Thank you all for being here," I began. "Tonight is not what you think. There's no potluck, no sermon. There's only truth and accountability." A few guests shifted. Mel's smile twitched. Tyler glanced at the exit. I continued, voice steady. "This past year, some of you watched Tyler and Mel move into my home. You may have thought they were helping. But behind closed doors, they were building something else. An attempt to take everything I've earned under the guise of love." I nodded to Pastor Jordan. He dimmed the lights. The projector flickered on, illuminating the far wall with a screenshot. The fake deed draft listing Mel's name. A murmur rippled through the crowd. "Each of you has a folder," I said. Inside are copies of financial transfers, altered documents, and communication logs, all verified. A quiet settled, heavier than silence. Tyler's face paled. Mel reached for his arm, whispering something sharp. And me. I stood center stage, anchored, unblinking. Tonight, I said, the pretending ends. And one by one, people began to open their folders. The hall held its breath. From the front, I watched them. Neighbors, church members, old friends, thumbed through the evidence. Some turned pages slowly, some flipped faster, faces tightening as they read. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, but otherwise, the room was still. I held the mic in both hands and continued, voice steady. In these folders, you'll find screenshots of bank transfers made without my knowledge. Zelle payments from my account labeled as birthday gifts and emergencies I was never told about. You'll find a falsified doctor's referral faxed in my name using my Medicare information without consent. Gasps scattered like pebbles dropped in water. One woman covered her mouth. Another shook her head slowly. I flipped the next slide. An audio clip. I'd recorded the conversation from October 6th, Mel speaking into her phone. The deed still lists her, but Darren said the draft is ready. The voices echoed through the hall like courtroom testimony. Tyler shot to his feet. You're twisting things, Mom! You don't even remember what you said yesterday! But before I could answer, Pastor Jordan stood. Mr. Morgan, you've had your time. You'll sit down now. His voice didn't rise. He didn't have to. Authority wrapped around him like a robe. Tyler froze, stunned by the firm boundary. Attorney Page stepped forward from her seat near the back. She had waited patiently, wearing gray slacks and wire-rimmed glasses, her briefcase resting neatly on her lap. When she spoke, it was with precision. All the documents presented here tonight have been reviewed for authenticity. The POA was revoked on October 9th. The attempted deed transfer was intercepted. Ms. Morgan's financial accounts have been secured, and all necessary fraud alerts are in place. She turned toward the audience. This is not just a family matter. It's elder abuse. Financial manipulation, documented and legally sound. Mel sank lower in her seat. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for someone who might defend her. But no one moved. I lifted one final page into the projector light, the guardianship filing. Tyler's name typed neatly at the top, under petitioner. You called me confused, I said, but I was paying attention. There was no applause, just silence, dense and truthful. And for the first time in months, I felt the weight shift. Not because I'd won, but because the truth had been heard, and the room believed it. At 7:15 p.m., the church doors opened to the cool evening air. I stood just outside the fellowship hall, under the soft orange glow of the streetlight, Pastor Jordan by my side. He held an envelope in one hand, thick, heavy with documentation. In the other, he handed me a small silver key. New locks, he said. Leon from the HOA stopped by this afternoon. All updated, security system reset, entry logs cleared. I took the key, warm from his hand. Not just metal. It felt like breath, like possibility. Inside, the hall slowly emptied. People murmured words of support. Hands found my shoulders. Backs were patted. Eyes nodded their understanding. But Tyler and Mel didn't wait. They were the first out the door. Mel brushed past me, jaw tight, makeup cracking under pressure. Her heels clicked fast across the pavement, each step a retreat. Tyler followed, slower, gaze darting like he might plead his case one last time. He opened his mouth, but Pastor Jordan stepped slightly forward. She won't be needing your explanations tonight. Tyler shut his mouth. They walked away, no longer in step. I stood still as their car pulled off, quietly, without drama. No shouting, no last accusations, just the soft exhale of a lie collapsing. Attorney Page joined me on the steps, holding her phone. Filed, she said. Deed reinstated. Guardianship petition officially withdrawn. And your new will is on record. No ambiguities. She pressed a copy of the deed into my hand. My name, and only my name, was typed across the top. October 13th, 2025. Sealed, witnessed, final. I hope you won't need me again, she added gently. I hope so too, I said. But if I do, I know who to call. Pastor Jordan placed his hand on my shoulder and whispered a quiet blessing. Words about strength, truth, and the protection of what we build with love and labor. Then, without fanfare, I walked down the steps and toward my waiting car. My binder rested in the passenger seat. The new key sat in my palm the entire ride home. When I pulled into the driveway, I paused before stepping out. The porch light was on. The camellias were in bloom. The house, my house, stood in silence, not waiting for a savior, but welcoming its owner back. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't just feel safe. I felt sovereign.